Welcome to the Smart Women of Business podcast. We've got big ideas for small business. Hello and welcome to the Smart Women of Business vlog and podcast. Today I am chatting with OIivia Mitchell. As a young, shy and introverted lawyer, OIivia hated speaking up in meetings. 10 years later, through an accident of fate, meeting her husband, she became a trainer and speaker. Over the last 20 years, OIivia has trained thousands of people from all industries to be more confident, effective and engaging speakers. OIivia now works online, guiding introvert women to build the confidence to speak up and to speak to groups. OIivia is the creator of online group program Stairway to Confidence, which helps women get through the fear of public speaking without doing any public speaking. Welcome, OIivia. I am very happy to have you here today.
It's my pleasure, Jane. I'm looking forward to having a chat.
It is a fun day to have a chat. So please tell me about your business journey.
It has been a long and winding road. So I've been in business for about 25 years. And it started off with a business that I ran together with my husband. So we were running presentation training courses in New Zealand. So very much a local-based business. And then in 2008, I started up a blog called Speaking About Presenting. And I poured my heart and soul into that. And I became known as a top presentation blogger. I was invited to speak at the Presentation Summit in the United States and recognized by my peers in the presentation industry. But I never made any money.
Oh.
The blog was just a blog. It was just putting out my work and my thinking around presenting. And in around 2012, I stopped running the blog at all and just concentrated on our New Zealand business. Now, it's just a year ago that I started writing for the blog again and started really trying to work online and help people all over the world. So that's just a potted history of where I've been.
Great. So it's blogs have a lot to answer for. Actually, my business came out of my blog, which didn't make me any money. I was just banging out words in my lunch hour at my corporate job, and then people get to know you. Yes. The magic of SEO. People get to know you and they know you for your niche. So yes, I relate to that entirely. And then you go, oh, how am I going to make any money out of this?
Yeah.
So what were the signs for you that you needed to change other than not making money? So what were the key indicators to you that it was time to do something different and change up your business?
Well, basically my own personal choice of wanting to be location independent, to develop a business where I didn't have to be in New Zealand and didn't have to be visiting clients face to face. Basically, that was what I wanted, is to have a business that I could run from anywhere in the world. That is my goal. And so transitioning to working online was the obvious thing to do. Now, I also thought that I would be able to leverage all the work I had put into my blog. I am coming to the stage now where I'm seeing I may have to let go of it.
Your baby.
So this is
your baby.
Yeah. It's a really big deal, but for me, it's one of the big lessons of business is sometimes you have to let go of what you've built to be able to do something new. And realizing, there are two things. One of the things is I've realized I no longer want to speak just about public speaking and presenting. And with a blog name, which is Speaking About Presenting, I'm kind of pretty defined there.
Kind of narrowed your niche a bit there.
Yeah. And it's not, although it's still what I'm about in terms of I help women with the fear of speaking up, of being visible and of public speaking. So it's part of my niche, but I don't want to talk about PowerPoint anymore. I don't want to, there are various things which I'm just which are not holding my interest anymore. I'm much more motivated by helping women to speak up. So it's a kind of a sideways movement. And I realized that the whole focus of my blog is slightly different. My blog gets tremendous traffic, but it's not necessarily the people that are going to relate to me now. So I'm in transition.
Yeah. And it's that wonderful thing of being in business for yourself. You can go, I don't want to do this work anymore. I'm going to change. I'm going to completely transform my business. And that transition is scary at the beginning. And you know, where am I going to find my clients? But then they always come. So you've just got to...
Well, yeah, crossing fingers.
They will. I promise you. They will.
I love your confidence.
Oh, just get your marketing and your branding sorted. You'll be fine. Yeah. So how do you manage your life as an entrepreneur with all the other things that go on in your life?
I'm pretty lucky in some ways in that I'm in my early 50s and children have all left home. So
no book week costumes for you this week then?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that that helps a lot, that I can be quite single-minded. And so basically I have a system where I say I have 3 things to do lists. The first is my monthly goals. So I find planning on a monthly basis really helpful because I can, a month is like I can see that far ahead and I can decide, yes, these are the particular projects that I want to get done this month. So I have my monthly goals and I have that on paper. Then I have an electronic to-do list, which is where I gather all the bits and pieces, all the rats and mice, the things that occurs to you at 3 a.m. in the morning, or
I know those
when you're in the shower, or when you're walking, that I can just jot it in. Oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. And sometimes they're not related to business, just life administration.
Life stuff.
But it's a good way, I find it a good way of just making sure that everything is in one place and not panicking about what have I forgotten to do. And then every morning I do my to-do list for the day. And what I have learned is to essentially the top 3 things, but it's not always exactly 3, but that idea of only picking the most important things you want to get done that day. And that if you do them, you will feel satisfied with the day. That stops me from feeling overwhelmed. And it stops me, and it means that I'm satisfied at the end of the day.
And I love ticking things off.
Yeah. Actually, I want to cross them out.
Oh, do you cross them out? Oh, I need to be able to read them again. My writing's not that clear that if I cross them out. So those to-do lists are one of the tools you use to be productive in your business. Are there any other tools or tips you can give people about productivity? Because that's something we all kind of struggle with.
Something which is really important, which I don't do enough, is taking breaks.
I'm a shocker at that.
What I tend to do is I just tend to keep working until I fall over, until I go, I can't do anymore. My brain is fried. And what I find is on the days where I force myself to take breaks, I am much more productive and can keep on working much longer.
Go and have a walk around the block.
Sometimes I use a variation of the Pomodoro technique, which I think you've discussed on your podcast.
Yes, I did. I talked about that with Kate.
Yes. So doing 25 minutes and then a 5-minute break. I did that one day where I decided I was going to write 6 blog posts.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I did it. I did it as 35 minutes on working, 10-minute break. And I planned out my whole day. I wrote out the schedule of when I was going to be writing and when I was going to be taking a break. And I had an hour and a half break in the middle of the day.
Did you have a nap?
I didn't have a nap. No.
Gosh, 6 blog posts in a day is massive.
I did it. Yeah. They were drafts, but now I'm going back to them as I want to publish a blog post once a week. And it maybe takes me not even an hour, just a little bit to just fine tune them and polish them up, and they're good to go.
Then you've got 6 weeks of content. I love batching. I love, I'll plan out 6 months worth of content in one hit. Whether that I execute that 6 months, I've just gone completely off piece because I've decided to do all these interviews with all these amazing women. So I'm like, well, that's my content sorted for the next 3 months. But I love batching content because if you're in the zone, stay in the zone, keep writing, because writing for a lot of people is just, I can bang out blog posts, but that's who I am.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do struggle with that content, and content's so important. And I'll spend, on a really good week, I'll spend a couple of hours on a Friday afternoon when I'm not feeling very productive, scheduling all my social for a fortnight even. I don't do it every week. I don't have time. But when I do, I'm like, oh, it feels so good. It's just another thing you don't have to think about. And if you can minimize all those little things you have to think about, then you're going to be more productive. So it's 6 blog posts. I'm impressed.
Yeah. So now the other thing that I do is I take a note. Whenever I have an idea for a blog post, I take a note of it. Now, my system for doing that, I've tried different systems like Evernote. I actually write myself an email now, and then I have a folder in my Gmail for my blog post ideas. And I find most of my ideas, they come from when I'm interacting with my students. So when I'm writing comments on the comments they've made on our course website, and I go, oh, that could make a blog post. I immediately write myself an email. And so I would end up with 30 to 40 ideas a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, and that's what I often have conversations with my clients is take note of those questions that people ask you, those frequently asked questions, because they're things that people are struggling with. If people are asking you the same questions over and over, either they're a barrier to a sale, or there's something that people want to know pre-sale, or something that people want to know to feel assured that you're the right person to give them the solution to the problem that they have. And it's really interesting listening to people's questions. I try and take note of them all. And I'm about to redesign my site again, and I'm like, I've got to put all of those FAQs that I've noted down in one spot. And it's really interesting.
Yes, yeah.
Because it's where your audience are coming from. And we rarely know a lot about our audience when we start out. So if you can take note of all those things, then you know more about your audience, which helps you connect with your audience. So
absolutely.
One of the things that affects every entrepreneur I know is imposter syndrome, or those little gnarly little gremlins in your head. So what are the methods you use to overcome imposter syndrome, and how do you respond to the bad days of business?
Yeah.
Which we often polish over with our beautiful Instagram feeds.
The thing that has been most useful for me is realizing that I only have to attract the people who are right for me. I don't have to be all things to all people. That helps me immeasurably. There are billions of people in the world. I only need a very few of those to make myself a sustainable business. I do not have to attract everybody. And realizing that the stronger I put me out there, myself, me out there, the stronger the right people for me will be attracted to me. And it is okay to repel everybody else.
Perfect.
That to me is incredibly powerful. So I've actually just kept on niching down. So when I started up my blog again last year, I decided I'm going to niche to introverts. And I identify as an introvert, and I realized that a lot of public speaking advice is given by extroverts, because most professional speakers are extroverts. And so they give advice that worked for them. That doesn't necessarily work so well for those of us who are introvert. So I thought there's really a space here for me as an introvert. You know, I went into being a professional trainer and speaker. I can give advice that works for us. So I niched to that, and that worked really well. People really responded to that. And then before I just launched my program for the second time, I decided I was going to do it just for women. So the first time I launched my program, Stairway to Confidence, it was for both women and men. that went fine, but I realized I can help women even more than I can help men, because I can relate to what they're going through. And I think all genders have got specific challenges, but I think as women, we have specific challenges when it comes to speaking up and public speaking. We have been conditioned to be good girls, to follow the rules, to do what you're told, follow the instructions, don't rock the boat, don't cause conflict. This is very strong in our upbringing, both from our parents, the instructions we got from our parents, and then from the overall culture. And now men have got their own set of challenges. I'm not saying that we're the only ones, but I think we have specific challenges. And I was just aware of feeling when I was coaching men that I was not as in tune with their particular challenges, and that I could just really relate to women and women could relate to me. So this time round, I've launched it just to women, and I'm loving it, and so are they.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And it feels really good.
And you're helping. For me, in my business, I always want to help women, because I identify so strongly with the women who are sitting in their offices at home by themselves, like we do, with trying to manage kids and deadlines and school lunches and book week costumes, and helping women is how I've also niched, and trying to help them build strong businesses, because financial freedom, and that can be through what you help them to do as well, through public speaking, because public speaking is an incredible income stream if you can get into it, is so incredible for women across the world. So I'm rural, and you're in New Zealand, but through our online businesses, we can help so many people. Speaking of conditioning and women through the ages, have you read Tracy Spicer's autobiography?
I haven't.
I've just finished it. So you just reminded me of it when you were speaking about being good girls and not speaking up. And if you're a woman in business, I recommend reading it. So
I've taken a note.
It's very interesting, very interesting. So how do you maintain your sense of community while working alone?
Yes. So before I got back into the blog, so until a year ago, I was being a presentation trainer. That was what I was. And so I was out sometimes 3 or 4 times a week in front of a group for the whole day.
That's exhausting.
So, it was pretty tiring, especially as an introvert. And so for the last year, I've basically loved being by myself in my home office. My husband works from home as well. He's now running the training business. And so, he's away some of the time, like he is today, but then other times he's around. So it's like I do have another human in the house. But it's not till the last probably month or so that I've gone, I should probably get out more.
Might need to leave the house.
I'm now on the lookout for a networking group, and I've visited a couple. And I think I've chosen the one I'm going to go for, so that I'll have at least once a month something that I go to and meet up with other women.
Humans in real life.
I have a very good friend that we go out to lunch with once a week, which is a kind of non-negotiable part of my week. So I have that as well.
So you've got that built-in, you've got those very built-in systems of, I'm going to go out and join the world. I chat with the mums after school and do that sort of thing. And some of them are my clients. So that's sort of, we get a bit of a power meeting in there. So it's important to maintain that connection. I do it a lot through Facebook groups because I am rural. Like, I'd love to go to a meetup in Melbourne, but that's 4 hours away. So that's not going to happen. Canberra's almost closer. So you work specifically with introverts to help them overcome their fear of public speaking. I mentioned to you just before we came on live that I actually do identify as an introvert. Many people perceive me as an extrovert. And if someone asked me to public speak, I gave the example, someone asked me to public speak, I think in November, and the event was in June, and I spent the 8 months in between absolutely freaking out. So, which I did. It was literally keeping me awake at night. I did it. I ended up doing it. It was fine and no one would have known. But why is it so difficult to overcome the fear of public speaking? I think some people would rather die than speak in public. So I'm a bit glowy. It's very sunny.
Yeah, that's okay. It's part of our evolutionary history as humans. So if I take you back 400,000 years ago, when we as humans are evolving on the planet, our way of surviving, of keeping safe from those big predators which were out to get us, and those big predators, they had big teeth and they had big claws, they had 4 legs so they could run really fast. So our way of staying safe was to be part of a group. It was essential for us to have the protection of the group. If we were kicked out of the group for any reason, it might mean a predator would get us and we would die. So staying in the group, fitting in, having the group's approval was absolutely critical to us. The sorts of things which might get us kicked out of the group would be not pulling our weight, not performing in the way that people expected, saying something out of turn, saying something that people didn't approve of, particularly saying something which might offend the leader. So we were all about fitting in and being approved of. Fast forward 400,000 years, physiologically, we are the same. It's the same basic brain we've got, same basic body. And so we want to fit in, we want to be approved of. So at the root of the fear of public speaking is the fear of disapproval.
Wow. Goes back that far.
Yeah, and it explains why so many people suffer from it. And the people who suffer no fear whatsoever around public speaking, they are the freaks.
Yeah.
They are the freaks. I think that is so important to remember, because it's very easy to feel alone around this and to think, I'm the only one who suffers in this way. But no, most people suffer to some extent. Some of us learn how to manage it.
And so if you've ever seen me public speak on the inside, freaking out.
Yeah.
But people say, wow, you're so confident. No.
Well, I mean, this is such an important thing to remember, is that that's the case for most people. When they get up in front of a group, the audience cannot see your freak out. Most often it is entirely internal, and they're just seeing somebody who seems to be going really well.
And they applaud you at the end, and you go, ooh.
Yeah. So it's really important to remember that most of the time, your inner freak out is not visible to the audience.
I'll remember that.
Yes.
It's only on the inside. So what would you say to someone, and what would you do with someone who's freaking out about presenting tomorrow or next week or in November?
Well,
in my case,
the timing really matters. So let's take it, if someone is speaking tomorrow, here's what I would say. You are going to feel nervous. You're feeling nervous now, you are going to feel those feelings. Rather than call it nervousness, just recognize that you've got, well, in fact, what would your symptoms be? Like the day before you had to do your speech.
I just feel really stressed. I mean, all the thoughts that go through your head. I'm going to muck up. I'm going to, people aren't going to think I know what I'm talking about. You know, all that lack of confidence stuff comes up for me. And then, I mean, even now talking to you, my palms are sweaty. Yes. You know, all of that stuff and that elevated heart rate and all those real fear signs. And if you don't have that fear, if you're not someone who does relate to this, the fear is actually physical.
Yes.
It's not just, I'm a bit worried. It's an actual physical fear reaction that you get.
Absolutely. So in terms of the physical symptoms, you've mentioned elevated heart rate, sweaty palms.
Not sleeping.
Yeah. Anything else?
Oh, I can't think of them now.
Okay. That's all too. Now, imagine tomorrow you were going on a big trip. You were traveling somewhere that you have wanted to travel your whole life. This is a trip that you have been planning for years, and you've been dreaming about it for even longer. It is your trip of a lifetime. You are so excited about it. And tomorrow is the day. What kind of physical symptoms do you think you would have?
I would probably not sleep, and I'd be really super excited, and my heart rate would be elevated.
Yeah.
This is me going to Eurovision on a cruise ship, people.
Okay, that's what it is. So the physical symptoms of being really excited are actually the same as the physical symptoms of fear. So what you do is you tell yourself, you actually repeat this to yourself, I'm excited, I'm excited.
Just tell your brain.
Literally, an academic researcher has done research on this. Her name is Alison Wood Brooks. She had groups of university students and she gave them tasks to do. So there were 3 different tasks. One task was public speaking. Another task was singing karaoke.
Oh, God.
And the third task was doing a maths test. So she had 3 different groups, 3 different tasks. Each group was then split into 2. And one half were told, before doing this task, repeat to yourself, I'm excited, I'm excited. The other group didn't do anything. The groups who repeated to themselves, I'm excited, did much better in their tasks than the group who said nothing. So the public speakers were judged as 17% more persuasive. Wow. The singers were judged as 22% better. So this really makes a difference. Now, the phrases that can often work for people, I mean, I'm excited is what she tested. But what I use with my clients is things like, I'm playing big. I am making myself visible. I'm making a difference in the world. I'm pursuing my goals. Put it into the context of why you are doing this. I'm excited because I'm playing big and I'm putting myself out there. Of course I'm feeling these feelings. Makes total sense.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Olivia.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell my 7-year-old that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a useful life skill to understand that. Now, that is if you are doing your presentation tomorrow, because there's not much time for anything else. If you have a few days, what you do is you start to recognize and acknowledge those voices in your head. So you mentioned some of the thoughts that you had.
The doubt.
The doubt, I'm going to muck up, people aren't going to understand me, all those sorts of things. And I like to classify those thoughts into 2 types. And I actually call these voices. So they're voices in your head. The first voice is called the demander. And the demander says things to you like, I must get it right. I must deliver my presentation exactly as I planned. What for you would be the top demand that you might have?
For me, I think I'm going to go out of order and it's going to be illogical and it's not going to make sense.
Right, okay. So I must go in the right order. It must make sense. It must be logical for my audience. Yeah, you resonate with that?
Yeah.
Now, notice the must in there. Other words we use are like have to, should. So we're putting a really high bar for how we must be. And that's what causes us to have the fight or flight response. Because essentially, that's also what's going on in our body is the fight or flight response. Because it's almost like saying to our brain is almost saying to our body, if I don't get this right, I'm going to die.
I'm going to die.
Yeah. So what do you go, okay, I'm going to try something. So what we need to do is bring that demand down a notch. And we do that by turning that demand that you have of I must go in a logical order, we turn that into a goal. So we just bring it down a notch to my goal is for my presentation to make sense for my audience.
I love it.
And you just lower it down. You just lower it down. So that's one voice as a demander. Now, there is another voice in your head which joins in with your demander when your demand is not met. So let's say you're delivering your presentation and you suddenly realize, oh, I went out of order. The voice that comes in then is called the catastrophizer.
I've got one of those.
Yeah. It says, oh my, this is terrible. You totally mucked this up. You have ruined your presentation. It really tells you it's a catastrophe. Yeah, you can relate to that one?
Yeah. These are the conversations I have with my 7-year-old.
Yeah.
What's the worst thing that can happen? No one else is going to know if you've mucked up.
Yeah.
But I say that to her, but I don't say it to myself.
Yeah. So you're talking to yourself like you would talk to a good friend or to your child going through the same thing is the way you want to talk to yourself. So often we beat up on ourselves instead.
Mm.
And you wouldn't dream of saying that to your 7-year-old.
No.
Oh, you just ruined it. You're never going to amount to anything. You wouldn't dream of saying that, would you?
No. We are so unkind to ourselves, Olivia.
We are so unkind. Yeah.
Oh,
so
brilliant.
The voice you want to replace the catastrophizer with is called the manager. So the manager, and I don't mean the manager in the way a boss is a manager. I'm using manager in the sense that a paramedic is a manager. So they come across or they call to the scene of an accident and it's unpleasant, it's not good. There are people who are severely injured, but they don't panic and they don't beat up on themselves of, oh my, you're not going to be able to manage this. They stay calm and they get on with administering first aid. And that's how you want to be when things go wrong in your presentation.
Calm.
Okay, manager. And the most important thing that the manager voice says to you is, I can handle this. I can handle this. Now, the manager voice helps you before your presentation, in that before your presentation, you actually think through what are the things that could go wrong, and you have plan Bs in place.
Brilliant.
And that is so useful.
So, yes, I'll remember that next time I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to show my 7-year-old this video and say, from the expert, next time you've got assembly, don't freak out. This is what to do.
Yes.
That's really useful. Thank
you. Now, going even further back, so we've looked at the day before, we've looked at a few days before, but the most useful thing you can do is start preparing yourself months before, even before you know you've got a presentation coming up. And you know how I mentioned to you before that the fear of public speaking is really the fear of disapproval. So what I do with my clients is I have them do very small actions which expose them to the fear of disapproval.
Ooh. Tiny
actions which only register at 0.1 on the fear scale. So an example of things, and remembering that I'm working with introverts, an example would be next time you're at the supermarket, say something complimentary to the checkout operator. So a tiny little thing. Or it might be next time you go out, wear a bright accessory that people might notice. So very tiny little things. And
those getting micro attention.
Yeah, micro attention. And because so many of us we're so concerned of what are other people thinking about us. Of course, the reality is people aren't thinking about us, they're thinking about themselves.
They are.
Even though we know that intellectually, but we need to drum it into ourselves that nobody else is paying any attention to you. And
nobody cares.
Nobody cares. But we need to do that by going out and actually doing these things and realizing people aren't paying attention. and then I get my students to build that up over time. So I actually build a stairway. They build their own stairway of starting off with these tiny actions and then going to more challenging actions. And so more challenging actions might be things like when somebody asks you to do something that you don't want to do, saying no.
There's a challenging action for a lot of women I know.
It can be very, very difficult. Yes. What's another one? Asking for help on a work project. That's also very difficult for many women. You know, we want to show how competent we are, and we are concerned that if we ask for help, people will think less of us. Oh, weren't you able to do that on your own? So I have a whole lot of actions to help people overcome that fear of disapproval. And it makes a huge difference to people when they get to actually be in front of a group.
Wow.
It really works.
That's really interesting, because in your work that you do, you also address speaking up in meetings.
Yes.
And often we sit there in meetings and think, I really want to say that, but they won't approve.
Yes.
And you don't get your voice heard unless you say something.
Exactly.
So it's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So speaking up in a meeting is that's a core thing for many, many women, of not doing that. So for somebody who's hardly ever spoken up in a meeting before, I really encourage them to prepare. So get the agenda, decide what item you are most likely to be able to say something, and actually think about what you might say. If you can, be in contact with the chairperson of the meeting or the facilitator of the meeting, and actually let them know that you'd like to talk on that agenda item. So that adds in a bit of accountability. Somebody else knows that you're planning that. If that's too frightening to tell the chairperson, if you have a colleague who's going to be in the meeting with you, you could also tell them. So a little bit of public accountability can go a really long way to just nudging you over the edge. Now, then you're in the meeting and your agenda item comes up. Apply the 5-second rule from Mel Robbins. Have you come across
I have heard of it. I don't know it well.
Okay, so Mel Robbins is a great person to follow. She has some really fantastic advice. The 5-second rule is when you have an action that you could take right in front of you, which is in alignment with your goals and your values, count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and take action. And do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. Yeah.
Right. Wow.
So that's my advice for speaking up in meetings. Really set it for yourself as a goal, get some public accountability, and prepare and use the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to say it out loud.
Accountability is so, and especially as solopreneurs, it's something we miss out on. And I love I have a friend who will give me a shout out, like just send me a text message, or when she's seen I've done something that she knows I was scared of. Yes. And she's like, I see you putting yourself out there, congratulations. And, having a group around you, I have my Facebook group and I have other Facebook groups I'm in, can really make a difference and have that sense of community. And that, as you would have a work colleague where who you have lunch with and say, I'm really stressing about this project, and that's where online, especially for rural women like me, is really valuable. So, and if you can't find an accountability in your buddy in your meeting, you find someone in your real world, in your outside world, who can prompt you and go, did you do that thing? Yeah.
Yeah. So, it really helps.
Yes, thank you. That's very interesting. So what keeps you motivated? What's your why for doing what you do every day?
I have 2. So my big why, my macro why, if you like, my big picture is I think the world would be a much better place if women were in charge.
2 thumbs up from me.
Yeah. So we need more women to have the confidence to be in charge and to be able to speak up and speak. So I see myself as doing my own little bit to just help more women have the courage and confidence to speak up. So that's my, at the big high level, that's what it is. Then at the micro level, it's just how satisfying, how great it is for me, how great I feel when there's just one single woman that I have helped who can now speak up and say what they want to say.
And it's and helping one person.
Yeah.
Every single person you help can go on to change the world. So it's incredible. So finishing up, what are your tips for all smart women in business across Australia and the world? 1, 2, 3, whatever you want.
So my number one tip is probably being really strong on that why of why you want to do it. I think if we don't have that inner motivational reason why we want to do it, it is so easy to lose confidence in oneself. And probably the biggest thing for me has been to understand that failure is inevitable on your route to success. So a quote that I love is that people who avoid failure avoid success.
Interesting, yes.
And so just, accepting that there'll be failure along the way. Early on in my journey, back when I was writing my blog full time, so this is between 2008 and 2012, I started writing an ebook on overcoming the fear of public speaking. And I wrote an email to my list, letting them know I was writing this ebook and wanting to gauge interest. And I got about 2 emails back. I stopped writing my ebook. I just stopped. And this time round, as I go back into my online business, I kind of understand, sometimes you're not going to get the response you want. Sometimes you are going to launch something and you're not going to get any response back. And you just have to pick yourself up and do it again, but differently. Learn from your mistakes. I've learned that copywriting is an essential part of being an entrepreneur, and I need to put some effort into that. It's not just enough to say I'm writing an ebook, are you interested? I needed to do more than that. But so it's picking myself up, learning from my mistakes is critical. Another thing, the 4th tip that's been really useful for me is getting clear on my business values. We are so bombarded by different marketing ideas for our businesses, and so many people who want us to take their course and do their thing and follow these exact steps and you will have success. And it is so easy to get seduced by those messages if you don't have your strong core and your strong sense of values about what you will do and what you won't do in terms of marketing in particular. So having strong values is another one.
Marketing does get a bit of the snake oil reputation around it, which I fight against constantly. So yes, it's a struggle. But thank you so much, OIivia. It's been really interesting to speak to you, and it's been really I got a lot out of it, so I'm sure the listeners and the viewers will too. And as I said, I'm going to show my 7-year-old.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
I've got something also that I'd like to share with you and which you can share with your listeners. And this is what I call scary action bingo. So, those little scary actions that I've told you before, I've put 20 of them onto a PDF and you play bingo with it. So they're actions that you're going to come across in your daily life. And when you do one, you tick it off. And the idea is what normally happens for us is when the possibility of doing a scary action comes up, our heart starts beating and we go avoid, 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 and we avoid it. by having this scary action bingo card in front of you or stuck on the wall in your office, it becomes, oh, here's an opportunity to do a scary action. So it becomes a playful thing instead of an avoidance thing, and you actually look forward to it because, oh, I can tick it off.
Fabulous. So I can drop the link to that in the show notes?
Indeed. Yes.
Fabulous. Thank you, OIivia. So I will be excited about the scary actions instead of nervous about the scary actions.
Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, OIivia. And I'll put all the links to OIivia and her business and the Scary Action Bingo in the show notes so everyone can learn more about you and see what you do every day to help women.
Very good. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Jane.
Wonderful. Thank you. See you soon.